I worked so hard for that victory. Feeling really fulfilled.
So then, first off, we just had Dakota Ditcheva in here, obviously from the PFL Europe series, now making the playoffs. I have to imagine on a personal level you feel very proud to see the development and just, you know, someone else, another European representing in America.
Well, you know, Dakota's the first one to validate the regional pathways that we're setting up. Obviously, PFL Europe is the first regional league that we've set up. We've got PFL MENA set up now. We've got plans for many others, but Dakota's always going to hold a special place in PFL history because she was the inaugural champ at flyweight. She's transitioned over to the global roster. Of course, she's doing so well right now. She's in the playoffs. If she wins the world championship as well, she's got a belt for each shoulder, and you know, she's really validated the pathway that PFL have created.
Talking about some of the other talent we saw out there tonight, just what do you think of the action? Obviously, a lot of the Bellator veterans, some of the UFC veterans, and others really showed out tonight. I mean, what were your thoughts overall?
Man, I thought we had some fantastic performances. Honestly, the Watanabe versus Liz Carmouche fight was very, very different to what I expected. You know, talking to Liz earlier this week, she expected to, if she started fast enough, she was going to be able to catch Watanabe cold and put her away first round. That was her thought process. But obviously, you know, kind of came out with a different plan entirely. She really put pressure on Liz, and it forced Liz to adapt. And of course, 8 seconds left in the third round, she's able to catch a beautiful armbar. That was really one of the best performances. And then I have to mention Tim Johnson. You know, short notice fight. He stepped in on a couple of weeks' notice, and you know, withstood one of the most horrendous groin shots at the same time as landing a knockdown punch, and then, you know, was able to get the finish and secure himself a spot in the playoffs. So it's been a good night.
Final question for me. Obviously, you know, there's still a lot of preliminary stuff to get through, but some big storylines. Heavyweights, we might have teammates fighting each other in the women's division. The new guys, new girls coming up taking on veterans. I mean, what are you most looking forward to in August?
I think we've got some really interesting fights. You know, a lot of people are going to be interested in Liz Carmouche versus Taila Santos. That's going to be a real level set for this whole division. And then, of course, I mean, Jenna Bishop looked fantastic tonight. She's clinched her spot in the playoffs, so she's going to be facing Dakota next. You've got, you know, 2 really strong fighters. Striker v grappler matchup, ultimately, you know. But I think Jenna Bishop's going to be a real challenge for Dakota, given the fact that Dakota's tall and long and rangy. If Jenna Bishop gets inside and is able to get that body lock, she's very good at manipulating people's balance and getting them to the floor. She's as dangerous on the floor as Dakota is on the feet. And I really think it's going to be an interesting matchup. And obviously, you know, teammates fighting one another are always a very, very interesting thing. It brings a fight to mind, a very, very old fight. You might not remember these guys. Andre Seminar and Amar Suluev, they both fought in the UFC, right?
Yeah.
They fought each other. They traveled to Valetudo, Brazil with each other, fought each other in the final, and it was one of the best and most bloodiest fights you'll ever see. So teammates fighting teammates goes one of 2 ways. These 2 guys are going to take chunks out of one another.
That's even before your time, man. That was impressive, man. That was a good pull right there.
In the back of it,
yeah. So, Dan, a question I have for you. Obviously, the PFL, there's always the promotion side of it. For a long time, Kayla Harrison was the face. We just asked Dakota, you know, is she ready to be the face? Do you think she could be the face of the PFL?
I certainly think so, yeah. I mean, you know, fights have got to carve their own path. You know, we as a promotion, I mean, the key word is promotion, right? We've got to get behind the athletes, all of them. But they've also got to, you know, create their own destiny. And Dakota's doing such a fantastic job of striving over the competition, you know, stopping people left and right, doing it in dramatic fashion. You know, you open your phone, you go into Instagram and you open it up and you've got 6 or 7 different shots straight away of Dakota getting a TKO finish. That's how you make a star. And she's doing that work on her own right. We're just giving her the platform to do it.
Obviously, when PFL, you know, acquired Bellator, you know, rosters got brought together. One of the biggest stars in the history of the sport, Cris Cyborg, she tweeted about a matchup between Pacheco and McCourt, kind of leaving Cyborg on the outside. What do you think about that matchup? And 2, like, what do you think is going on with Cyborg? What would you like to see happen?
Well, she's got a boxing match coming up, right? So I would imagine she's focused on that. I mean, of course, we all want to see her back in action. You know, there are some tough fights. Pacheco is a tough fight for any single female fighter on the planet, absolutely. Leah McCourt is a very, very accomplished fighter that deserves her opportunities. But, man, who knows what's going to happen next. As long as Cyborg comes through this boxing match healthy, I would imagine we're going to see her in the smart cage sometime very soon.
Obviously, they're bringing in some new stars, kind of bringing back an old star, Jimmy Smith. I know someone you've worked with. Obviously, you got a broadcast with it. What do you think about that?
Man, I'm looking forward to working with Jimmy again. You know, he's one of the best minds in the sport, one of the best voices in mixed martial arts. I worked with him a few times on UFC commentary, and he was just great to work with. You know what I mean? I'm glad that he's got his opportunity to come back to Bellator, and I'll be sitting cage side with him next week. It's going to be really good to hear his voice again.
And obviously, the PFL, they've had a lot of success, but with success also comes criticism. I wouldn't do my job if I didn't ask you. One of the big criticisms that happened recently is they booked a fighter that was 0-7 on the last card. What's your response to the critics saying that was really irresponsible?
Hey, well, that was me. I'll take full responsibility for that booking. So the circumstance with that, I had 15 fights on that card last week. Ben Willis, there was a lot of people tuned in ready to watch Ben Willis fight. He was matched up against a French fighter, a real tough fighter called Meher Ben Lakhtar. He didn't get his passport in time, so he wasn't able to travel out. Ben Willis has put a tremendous amount of work in for that training camp, and I wanted him to compete. A lot of people were hoping for him to compete. I scoured Europe trying to find someone that would take the fight. And normally I would never match up somebody with that record because, of course, 0-7 versus 3-0. That's not a good look for us as the PFL. But what I did do is I looked at Ivanovic's record. I looked at his past fights. I looked at the people he's fought. I looked at the challenges that he's taken. And this guy's a gamer, right? He was the only person that had medicals done and was willing to take the fight against Ben Willis on short notice. At one point in my career, I was 0-1. And I fought a guy who was 24-17-3, and he didn't need to fight me at the time, right? I was an unnecessary risk. I was a fighter that had one loss on their record, and he gave me the opportunity to compete, and I won the fight, and I went on and had a fantastic career. Sometimes these fighters, it's about the individual. That guy shows up to fight every time. You watch the fight yourself, you can see he was a game fighter. Unfortunately, sometimes people can't get on a win streak. They can't get that first win in the record, but if they keep trying, they're going to get it. He will get a win on his record at some point in the near future because he keeps pushing, he keeps taking fights. The downside is he keeps taking on really, really tough prospects, and it's almost like a challenge for him that he wants to fight someone that's expected to beat him. Like, he's broken prospects' noses, he's been a real handful for fighters. That was, and I'll take that one entirely on the chin, that was me trying to keep a fight on the card and trying to get two fighters paid because they wanted to compete. That's the bottom line to that matchup.
So Dan, let's talk about you. You've teased that you want to get back into fighting yourself. Any updates?
Man, I think people are sick of me teasing about me fighting again. You know, I've just turned 42. The reality is there's never going to become a point in my life where I will retire as a fighter. My mouth guard's in that bag over there, but I promise you that. I carry it everywhere with me. If there's an opportunity, I'm ready to go. I just love fighting. I love competing. Everything else to me is supplementary. The competition is always first and foremost, and if there's an opportunity, a right fight, then potentially I might step back in there. You know, you look across the PFL roster, we've got great fighters like Anthony Pettis. You know, we've got Tyron Woodley, who's going to be on comms next week as well, another person that I thought I would cross paths with at some point. Who knows what's going to happen in the future. I need to lose a few pounds, get myself back in shape. I'll get my medicals done, and then maybe I'll step back in 2025.
Now, as a broadcaster, would you actually like to see the organization get some more divisions to the 6 that they already have?
Absolutely. You know, I've got fighters chasing me on a daily basis. You know, fighters that I can't accommodate because we don't have their weight classes right now. PFL's growing, and we're growing very, very quickly. And we have to be smart in which ways we grow and how we add the weight classes, of course. But you know, the most important thing right now is that we find competitive weight classes that have got that are stacked in the division. And as soon as we can look at, say, a middleweight or a women's bantamweight division, and we feel like we can fill it out and make it competitive, we'll add those in. There's lots more changes, positive changes coming to the PFL, and more weight classes.
Okay, so we've talked about the women, and we've talked about division. Next month, Clarissa Shields is fighting at 180 pounds, moving up 2 weight classes to fight for the light heavyweight championship of the WBC. Do you think she can actually, in a timely manner, come back down to fighting weight here, or do you think she's putting MMA in the rearview mirror for now?
I don't think she can. You know, after Savannah Marshall looked so good last week in Newcastle, you know, and this is just my personal opinion, I feel like Savannah Marshall has taken to mixed martial arts far better than Clarissa has. And I think last week Clarissa realized that. Watching Savannah Marshall compete, the way that she moved, the way that she was able to maintain her boxing skill and her footwork, and then straight away she called out Clarissa Shields. That's a fight that can't be avoided now, right? Clarissa's going to go up, potentially she's going to win some more belts, she's going to become another champion of another weight class. The real challenge is Savannah Marshall in the PFL. And that fight has got to happen. Savannah wants it, Clarissa wants it. They've already agreed the weight class, they've shaken hands on it, so it's only a matter of time before they get that rematch in the small gloves.
Dan, I know you touched on it a bit, but I'd like to hear you talk about fighting. So can we get some preliminary analysis for Tyler Santos and this competition?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, the real question is, where does Tyler Santos want to take this fight? You know, she's a very strong grappler, but do you want to really tangle up with Liz Carmouche in the grappling range? The smart thing to me would be for Tyler Santos to keep his fight at range. You know, sting her with her Muay Thai. She's got a real strong presence with Muay Thai. You can see it straight away tonight when she started unloading kicks. And I think if she can shut Liz Carmouche down on the outside and really put a Muay Thai pressure on her, that'd be the way to win. On the other side, Liz Carmouche, physically very strong, very well conditioned. If she can get the fight to the floor, she can chase to the back. We know what kinds of problems she can cause on the floor, and she's very, very good at adapting on the spot. So even if Tyler Santos comes in with a really strong skill set and more range, you know Liz Carmouche can take it the other direction. For me, that is going to be a fascinating fight because they've both got so much experience. They can both fight and win the fight in any direction. So honestly, it really is a coin toss, that one. It's about who puts the best training camp in, and ultimately who came out freshest from tonight.
Also tonight we saw Linton Vassell put a beautiful performance, completing the trilogy, defeating Valentin Moldavsky. However, Moldavsky's in the playoffs, Linton's the odd man out, right? So one fight I was thinking about, Linton Vassell was booked to headline Bellator 300 back in October versus Ryan Bader. We know Ryan Bader's a big movie star now, he's filming a big movie with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. But can we maybe see that fight down the line, Ryan Bader versus Linton Vassell, the rematch?
Man, you should be a matchmaker. That's a great fight. You know, it would be a really interesting one. And I tell you what, selfishly, I'd like to bring Ryan Bader over to the UK and do that fight in London as well. I mean, you know, Linton Vassell's been wanting to fight in London for a long time. There's the opportunity, and that would be a really, really good fight. Absolutely.
They called it unfinished business. I needed that. And I'm also looking for a job. But what did you make of the crowd tonight here at Mohegan Sun? It seemed like the place was packed, screaming from start to finish.
It was good, man. It was really good. You know, this is my first time at Mohegan Sun, but it holds a special place in my heart because of its history in mixed martial arts and in boxing, you know. And I think when you've got an arena like this that's so iconic for combat sports, anytime the fans walk in, they expect something big, and I think they come in with that energy, and the fighters feed off that energy. Honestly, speaking as a fighter, if you walk out to an arena that's buzzing and they're really wanting you to perform at your best, it lifts that extra 10% out of you, and I think that's what we got tonight.
The last one for you. You just said this is your first time at Mohegan Sun, so I gotta know, what's your casino game of choice?
Man, I am absolutely not a gambler at all. I'm not lucky enough for any of that kind of stuff. You saw me got knocked out in my hometown by Condit. I'm not lucky enough for gambling. I'll stick with Sudoku on my phone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, I'm not sure if anybody asked you about this yet, but in the heavyweight portion of the tournament, playoffs rather, we're gonna have Oleg Popov and Valentin Moldavsky fight each other, and these two guys are teammates. How do you expect this to go? And you know, how do you, if you had to kind of guess or weigh in on it, how do you see the next couple of weeks for these guys going?
Well, first of all, they need to figure out how they're going to prepare for it, because we had both of these guys sat in front of us this week for fighter interviews, and we were interviewing Moldavsky first, and Oleg was just sat next to him, so we just kind of moved from one to another. And the biggest interest was, you know, how is he? What's he strong at in the gym, right? We asked that same question to both of them. Moldavsky said his control, his wrestling is phenomenal. He's very, very strong. He's the worst person to be wrestling with in the gym. Then we switched it to the other side, and Oleg said he punches incredibly hard. So I think straight away they have this preconception of one another and how the fight's going to go. Like, we're going to have Moldavsky trying to keep this fight on the feet. We're going to have Oleg trying to get this fight to the floor and ride him and slow him down. Like we saw Moldavsky slow down tonight. He gassed a little bit in that last round. If I'm his teammate Popov, I'm thinking that's the way that I take this fight. It's going to be a challenge, of course, because they're teammates and they've trained together for so long, but I was asked about this before, and I referenced Andrei Semenar and Omar Suluev, maybe a little bit before your time, but a fantastic fight between two Russian warriors who travelled to the event together, went through the tournament, and ended up fighting each other in the final and took absolute chunks out of one another. I think it's going to be a really, really good fight. Really good fight.